The signal came at 3 in the morning, Earth time. Admiral Park was asleep in his cabin aboard the UNSF Hammer of Dawn when the alarm pulled him from his dreams. He was 57 years old, with gray hair at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. He had spent 30 years in the military, waiting for a war that never came. Now, as he sat up in his bed and listened to the urgent beeping, he felt something cold move through his chest. It was not fear. It was excitement. He dressed quickly and walked to the bridge. The ship was quiet at this hour, but he could feel the tension in the air. Something had happened. Something big. Lieutenant was waiting for him at the main console. She was young, maybe 28, with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had been with his fleet for 3 years and trusted her completely. "Sir," she said, her voice tight, "we received a distress signal. It's not human." "Stopped walking. Show me." The main screen lit up with data. Strange symbols scrolled across the display, but the translation software was already working. Within seconds, the message became clear. "This is the research vessel Gentle Dawn. We are under attack, 12 hostile creatures. We cannot escape. Please, anyone help us." The message repeated, again and again, the same desperate words. "Who are they?" asked. Replied, "They're a small species. Scientists, mostly peaceful. They study stars and planets. They have no weapons." Knew about the Galactic Council had files on every known species, and humanity had stolen copies of those files decades ago. There were gentle creatures with 4 arms and soft voices. They had never hurt anyone. "Where are they?" 3 jumps from here, in the null zone. The null zone felt his jaw tight. The Galactic Council had forbidden humans from entering that region of space. They said it was for humanity's protection, but knew the truth. The Council was afraid. They had watched humanity grow from primitive creatures to a spacefaring species in just a few thousand years. They had seen the wars humans fought against each other. They had studied human weapons, and they had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed into the wider galaxy. So they had drawn a line around Earth and its colonies. They had told humans to stay inside that line, and for 50 years, humanity had obeyed. But now, someone was calling for help. "What's attacking them?" asked. His face went pale. "Wraiths, sir." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew that name. Wraiths were the monsters of the galaxy. They were creatures of metal and flesh, born from some ancient experiment gone wrong. They moved through space like sharks through water, hunting ships and eating crews. They felt no pain, they showed no mercy, and they could not be reasoned with. 200 years ago, the Galactic Council had sent their best fleet to destroy a swarm of 8 wraiths. 47 ships went into battle, 3 came back. Since then, the Council had adopted a new strategy. They did not fight the wraiths, they ran from them. "How many wraiths?" asked. 12, sir, a full hunting swarm." 12. Closed his eyes and thought about what that meant. 12 wraiths could destroy a planet's defenses in hours. They could hunt a species to extinction in weeks. And right now, they were circling a small research ship full of scientists who had never held a weapon in their lives. "Has the Council responded to the distress call?" he asked. Shook her head. "No, sir, they've marked the ship as lost. They're not sending anyone." Of course they weren't. The Council was afraid. They would let those scientists die rather than risk their own ships. But humanity was not the Council. Opened his eyes and looked around the bridge. His officers were watching him, waiting for orders. He could see the fear in some of their faces, but he could also see something else. Hope, hunger, the desire to finally prove what they could do. The 7th Hunter Group was not a normal fleet. It was humanity's answer to a question the galaxy had never asked. What happens when humans decide to hunt the hunters? For 30 years, had trained his crews for exactly this moment. They had built ships designed for killing. They had developed weapons that could tear through any armor. They had prepared for the day when something in the darkness needed to die. That day had come. "Lieutenant," said, his voice calm and steady, "send a message to all ships. Wake everyone up. I want the fleet ready for combat in 1 hour." Hesitated. "Sir, the null zone is forbidden space. If we go there, the Council will." "The Council isn't here," interrupted. "Those scientists are, and they're going to die if no one helps them." He turned to face the main screen where the distress signal still repeated its desperate plea. We didn't build this fleet to sit in our own space and wait for threats to come to us. We built it to protect people, all people, even the ones the galaxy has given up on. He looked back at his crew. 18 ships, 12 wraiths, I like those odds. A small smile crossed his face. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had finally found worthy prey. Tell the fleet to prepare for jump. We leave in 1 hour, and tell them to load the heavy weapons. He paused and his eyes grew cold. Tonight we hunt. The bridge erupted into activity. Officers shouted orders. Consoles lit up with data. Throughout the massive ship, alarms began to sound as thousands of crew members woke from their sleep and ran to their stations. 3,000 light-years away, a small ship full of terrified scientists waited to die. They did not know that help was coming. They did not know that humanity had heard their call. But they would learn, and so would the rest of the galaxy. Space tore open like a wound, and 18 ships came through. The 7th Hunter Group emerged from imperfect formation. They moved together like wolves running in a pack, each ship knowing exactly where to go and what to do. At the front was the Hammer of Dawn, Admiral Park's flagship. It was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons and built for one purpose, to destroy anything that threatened humanity. Behind it came 2 battle cruisers, the Silent Fury and the Winter's Edge. Each one carried enough firepower to burn a city to ashes from orbit. Their crews had trained for years, waiting for a real enemy to fight. And then there were the hunter-killers. 6 black frigates, smaller than the other ships but far more deadly. They had been designed in secret by humanity's best engineers. They were fast, quiet, and built for killing things that did not want to die. Their names told the galaxy exactly what they were: Gravedigger, Final Answer, Black Dawn, Silent Death, and Last Breath. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the and watched the stars appear around her. She was 34 years old, with a thin face and eyes that never seemed to blink. Her crew called her the surgeon because she was precise, cold, and never left survivors. Visual contact, reported her sensor officer, a young man named, I see the ship, it's bad, Captain. Looked at the main screen and felt her stomach twist. The gentle Dawn was tumbling through space, broken and bleeding. Holes had been torn through its hull. Atmosphere leaked from a dozen wounds. Emergency lights flickered weakly inside, showing glimpses of destroyed corridors and floating debris. And around the dying ship, the wraiths circled. Had seen pictures of wraiths before. Everyone in the fleet had studied them, but pictures did not capture the horror of seeing them in person. They were massive creatures, each one nearly a kilometer long. Their bodies were a nightmare mix of metal and flesh, covered in bone-like spines and glowing with a sick yellow light. They had no eyes, but somehow they could see. They had no mouths, but somehow they could feed. They moved through space like living nightmares, and wherever they went, death followed. 12 of them. 12 monsters that had terrified the galaxy for thousands of years. Life signs on the ship continued. 47, they're fatting. 47 people, scientists, researchers, beings who had never hurt anyone, who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were dying slowly while monsters circled outside their windows. The Admiral's voice crackled through the fleet channel. All ships, this is Admiral Park, report status. One by one, the ships answered. Every weapon was loaded. Every crew was ready. Every heart was beating fast with fear and excitement. The wraiths have noticed us, Lieutenant reported from the Hammer of Dawn. They're turning toward the fleet. They look confused. Smiled grimly. Of course they were confused. The wraiths had hunted across the galaxy for. They had faced the Council's finest warships. They had fought against species that had been building weapons for millions of years, and they had won, every single time. They had never fought humans before. All hunter-killers break formation on my command, ordered through the tactical channel. Standard hunting pattern. Pick your targets and do not stop until they're dead. Across the fleet, 5 other captains acknowledged her orders. Commander Minu on the Final Answer, Captain on the Gravedigger, Commander on the Black Dawn, Captain O on Silent Death, and Lieutenant Commander Shin on Last Breath. They were the best ship commanders humanity had ever produced. They had trained together, fought together, and waited together for this moment. Now, finally, they would hunt together. The wraiths began to move toward the human fleet. They were slow at first, uncertain. They had never seen ships like these before. The human vessels were different from Council designs. Sharper, more aggressive, built not for defense but for attack. One of the wraiths screamed. The sound traveled through space in ways that should have been impossible, a psychic howl that touched every mind in the fleet. It was a sound of hunger and rage, a promise of death. Captain Bay stood on the bridge of the Winter's Edge and watched the wraiths approach. She was 41 years old, a veteran of the Belt Wars, and she had never been afraid of anything. But for just one moment, hearing that scream, she felt fear creep into her heart. Then she pushed it away. Fear was useless. Fear did not save lives. Only action saved lives. Battlecruiser Group, move to defensive position around the ship, she ordered. Those civilians are our priority. Nothing gets through to them. The Admiral's voice returned, calm and steady. This is Admiral Park of the United Nations Space Force. To the vessel Gentle Dawn, hold on. We're coming to save you to the wraiths. He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was iron. You picked the wrong corner of the galaxy to hunt in. All ships, weapons free. Kill them all. The wraiths charged. They screamed again, louder this time, and their bodies began to glow brighter as they prepared to attack. They moved fast, faster than any creature of that size should be able to move. They had killed thousands of ships this way, overwhelming them with speed and power. But the human fleet did not run. The human fleet did not panic. The human fleet did something the wraiths had never seen before. The human fleet attacked. 18 ships surged forward to meet 12 monsters. Weapons powered up across the fleet, filling space with the hum of energy and the promise of violence. The battle of the null zone had begun. The Hammer of Dawn fired first. Its main weapon was a magnetic accelerator 400 meters long. It took a solid piece of tungsten the size of a car and hurled it through space at 3% of the speed of light. Nothing could survive a hit from that weapon. Nothing ever had. The largest wraith was still turning toward the fleet when the round struck it. One moment the creature existed. The next moment it was gone. The impact tore through its body like a bullet through paper. Metal and flesh exploded outward in a cloud of frozen blood and shattered armor. The wraith did not have time to scream. It did not have time to feel pain. It simply stopped existing. First blood to humanity. The remaining 11 wraiths screamed together. The psychic howl was so loud that several crew members on the nearest ships grabbed their heads in pain. It was a sound of shock and fury. These creatures had not felt fear in thousands of years. They had almost forgotten what it meant to be prey. They were about to remember. "Hunter-killers, engage!" Captain Lee shouted. The 6 black frigates scattered like wolves breaking from a pack. They were faster than the larger ships, more agile, built to get close to the enemy and tear them apart. The dove beneath a wraith's massive body, dodging the creature's slashing limbs. Its point-defense guns fired continuously, shredding the sensory tendrils that the wraith used to see and feel. "Torpedoes away," announced. 4 antimatter warheads buried themselves in the wraith's underbelly. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the warheads detonated, and nuclear fire consumed the creature from the inside. The wraith split apart, its scream cut short as its body became an expanding cloud of burning debris. 2 down, 10 to go. Commander Minu saw his chance. The final answer was the fastest ship in the fleet, designed for hit-and-run attacks against larger enemies. He had been waiting his entire career for a fight like this. A wraith turned toward his ship, its massive jaws opening to reveal rows of teeth made from some unknown metal. The creature lunged forward, trying to swallow the frigate whole. Minu smiled and increased speed. The final answer flew directly into the wraith's mouth. Inside the creature, everything was dark and hot and filled with half-digested debris from previous kills. Minu did not slow down. He fired every weapon his ship had. Missiles, cannons, lasers, everything. The final answer tore through the wraith's body like a bullet, ripping apart organs and systems that had never been touched before. The ship burst out of the creature's back in a shower of gore and kept flying. Behind it, the Wraith collapsed, dead before it could understand what had happened. 3 down. On the Winter's Edge, Captain Bay was fighting a different kind of battle. Her job was not to kill Wraiths. Her job was to protect the ship. 2 Wraiths had broken through the attack and were heading straight for the gentle Dawn, eager to finish their meal. Put her ship between them and their prey. All forward weapons target the lead Wraith, she ordered. Do not stop firing until it's dead. The Winter's Edge was not as fast as the Hunter-Killers, but it carried more weapons than any 3 of them combined. Plasma cannons roared to life, painting space with beams of superheated gas. Missile launchers emptied their tubes. Point defense guns filled the void with thousands of rounds per second. The lead Wraith tried to dodge, but there was nowhere to go. The barrage struck it from every angle, burning holes through its armor and cooking the flesh beneath. It screamed and thrashed, but the Winter's Edge did not stop firing. 30 seconds later, the creature was dead. The second Wraith saw its companion die and hesitated. That hesitation cost it everything. The Silent Fury, the other battlecruiser, had circled around behind it. Captain ordered a full broadside, and the Wraith was torn apart by fire from 2 directions at once. 5 down, 7 to go. The battle was only 4 minutes old, but half the Wraiths were already dead. The creatures had never faced anything like this. They had never fought an enemy that attacked with such speed, such precision, such complete lack of fear. The human ships moved through the chaos like dancers, each one knowing exactly where to be and when to fire. On the Gravedigger, Ensign Han was having the best day of her life. She was 22 years old, fresh out of training, and this was her first real combat. She was stationed at the forward laser array, a weapon powerful enough to cut through starship armor. A Wraith was coming straight at them. It was smaller than the others, maybe a young one, but it was still terrifying. Its body was covered in spines and its mouth was open wide, ready to bite. Aimed carefully. Her training took over. She found the creature's center mass, the place where its vital organs should be, and she held down the trigger. The laser burned a hole straight through the Wraith. The beam entered through its front and exited through its back, destroying everything in between. The creature shuddered once and went still. Captain looked at the young ensign with new respect. "Good shot, Ensign." Smiled, her hand still shaking. "Thank you, Captain." 6 down. The remaining Wraiths tried to flee. For the first time in thousands of years, they felt fear, real fear, the kind of fear they had made others feel for so long. They turned away from the human fleet and tried to run. But humans were hunters, and hunters did not let their prey escape. The Black Dawn and Silent Death chased the fleeing Wraiths through the darkness. Commander and Captain O worked together, herding the creatures like wolves herding sheep. They cut off escape routes and forced the Wraiths into a killing zone. The last breath was waiting there. Lieutenant Commander Shin had positioned his ship perfectly. When the Wraiths flew into range, he fired everything. 3 more Wraiths died in that trap. 9 down, 3 to go. The final 3 Wraiths turned to face their hunters. They were the largest of the group, the oldest, the strongest. They had survived countless battles against the galaxy's finest warriors. They would not die running. They charged at the hammer of dawn. Admiral Park watched them come. He was not afraid. He had waited 30 years for this moment. "All ships," he said calmly, "focus fire on my position, kill them." The entire fleet turned its weapons toward the 3 remaining Wraiths. Every gun, every missile, every laser fired at once. The barrage was so intense that space itself seemed to burn. The Wraiths lasted 8 seconds. When the firing stopped, there was nothing left. 12 of the galaxy's greatest predators had been reduced to clouds of drifting ash. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. The humans had not lost a single ship. 3,000 light-years away, the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence. The council chamber was a massive room on a space station at the center of known space. It was here that the most powerful species in the galaxy met to decide the fate of billions. For 10,000 years, they had guided civilization, settled disputes, and protected the weak from the strong. Or at least, that is what they told themselves. High Arbiter was the oldest member of the council. She was a being made of living crystal that could survive for millions of years. She had watched empires rise and fall. She had seen species evolve from primitive creatures to civilizations. She had witnessed wars that burned entire star systems to ash. But she had never seen anything like what she had just witnessed. "Play it again," she whispered. The recording started over. The council had surveillance drones throughout the galaxy, hidden devices that watched everything. One of those drones had been in the null zone when the human fleet arrived. It had recorded the entire battle. On the screen, 18 human ships emerged from. The council members watched as the humans saw the dying vessel and the 12 wraiths circling it. They watched as Admiral Park gave his orders. They watched as the fleet attacked. And they watched, in horror, as the humans destroyed all 12 wraiths in 11 minutes. "Impossible," muttered the ambassador. They were a warrior species, large creatures with 6 legs and armored shells. They had fought the wraiths many times. They had lost many times. "This is impossible. Our best fleets could not do this. We sent 47 ships against 8 wraiths. Only 3 returned." "The humans lost nothing," observed the representative. "They were master engineers, builders of the finest ships in the galaxy. Their vessels are different. We have never seen designs like these." "Because they build for war," said a quiet voice. Everyone turned to look at the representative. She was small, even for her species, with 4 arms and large, frightened eyes. Her name was Kells, and she had been crying since the battle ended. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. "We sent the distress call to everyone," she continued. "To the council, to the trade guilds, to every ally our species has made in 2,000 years of peaceful exploration. We begged for help. We told them we were dying." Her voice broke. "Only the humans came." The chamber fell silent. "The humans are dangerous," the ambassador said slowly. "We have always known this. That is why we confined them to their own space. That is why we forbade contact. They are violent, aggressive, and unpredictable." "They are also brave," Kells replied, "and loyal, and willing to die for strangers they have never met." She looked around the chamber, her eyes now dry and hard. "Can any of you say the same?" No one answered. On the screen, the recording continued. The battle was over now, and the human ships were moving toward the gentle dawn. Small shuttles launched from the Hammer of Dawn, carrying medical teams and engineers to the dying ship. Admiral Park's face appeared on the recording. His voice was tired but gentle. "Vessel Gentle Dawn, this is Admiral Park. We are sending rescue teams to your ship. Your wounded will be treated. Your dead will be honored. You are safe now." The captain appeared on the screen. His name was, and he looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. His 4 arms trembled as he spoke. "Why?" he asked. "Your species does not know us. The council forbade you from leaving your territory. You had no reason to come. You had no reason to risk your lives for us. Why did you help?" There was a long pause. Then Admiral spoke again, and his words echoed through the council chamber. "Because you called for help. That is reason enough." High Arbiter closed her eyes. She was millions of years old. She had seen so much death, so much cruelty, so much selfishness. She had watched species that could have helped others turn away because the risk was too great or the reward was too small. And now here were the humans, young, violent, dangerous humans. They had heard strangers crying for help and they had come. They had faced monsters that terrified the galaxy and they had won. They had done this not for money, not for power, not for territory. They had done it because someone needed help. "We have made a terrible mistake," said softly. The ambassador frowned. "Mistake? They have violated our laws. They have entered forbidden space. They have proven they are more dangerous than we ever imagined." "No," replied. "They have proven they are more human than we imagined, and that is something very different." "I do not understand," the ambassador said. Opened her eyes and looked at the frozen image of Admiral on the screen. "For 50 years we kept the humans locked in their own space. We told ourselves it was for safety. We told ourselves they were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. But we were wrong. We were not protecting the galaxy from them. We were protecting ourselves from feeling shame. She gestured at the screen. Look at them. Look at what they did. They answered a call for help. They risked everything for strangers. They killed monsters that we have run from for thousands of years. And when it was over, they asked for nothing in return. Her crystalline body flickered with complex emotions. They are not monsters. They are heroes, and we have treated them like criminals. The chamber was silent for a long time. Finally, the representative spoke again. My people want to thank the humans. We want to invite them to we want to offer them our friendship. That would violate council law, the ambassador said automatically. Then perhaps, Kells replied coldly, it is time to change the law. High Arbiter nodded slowly. Perhaps it is time for many things to change. Outside the chamber, the galaxy continued to turn, but something had shifted. A new force had announced itself to the stars, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days had passed since the battle. The gentle Dawn had been towed to the nearest space station, a small outpost orbiting a blue star. All 47 survivors were alive, thanks to the human medical teams that had worked without rest to save them. Some had been badly injured. Some had nearly died, but every single one of them would recover. Admiral Park stood alone on the observation deck of the Hammer of Dawn. Through the massive windows, he could see the stars stretching out forever in every direction. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was probably debating what to do about him. He had broken their laws. He had entered forbidden space. He had proven that humanity was everything they feared. He did not care. The door behind him opened and Captain Lee walked in. She had changed out of her combat uniform into a simpler outfit. There were dark circles under her eyes. Like everyone in the fleet, she had not slept much in the past 3 days. Admiral, she said, I have the communication reports. Nodded without turning around. Tell me. The Galactic Council has sent 17 official messages. They are demanding an explanation for our unauthorized military action in Council space. They want to know why we violated the territorial agreement. They are threatening sanctions. Threats, said quietly, that is all they know how to do. They have sent one message, continued. It is a formal thank you from their government. They have invited our fleet to visit there as honored guests. They want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Smiled slightly, that is kind of them. There is more. They have contacted us through back channels. They want to know if humanity would be interested in a military exchange program. They want to learn how we build our ships, how we train our crews. She paused. They want to know how we killed the Wraiths. And what about the Wraiths themselves? Pulled up a display on her wrist computer. Long-range sensors show that the nearest Wraith swarm has changed course. They were heading toward Council space. Now they are moving toward the outer rim, away from human territory. They are running, said. It appears so, sir. Finally turned to face her. His face was tired, but his eyes were bright. Good. Let them run. Let them tell others of their kind what happened here. Let them spread the word about what humans do to monsters. Hesitated. Sir, the Council will not forgive this easily. We have broken their laws. We have shown them that we are dangerous. They may try to punish us. Let them try, replied. We have 18 ships in this fleet. Earth has 200 more at home. And we have just shown the galaxy that we can kill things that everyone else runs from. He shook his head. The Council is afraid of us. They have always been afraid of us, but fear can become respect if we earn it. And how do we earn it? By doing exactly what we did 3 days ago, by answering calls for help, by protecting the weak, by killing the monsters that everyone else is too afraid to fight. Walked toward the window and looked out at the stars. The Council called us violent. They called us aggressive. They said we were too dangerous to be allowed into the galaxy, but they were wrong about what that means. He turned back to, we are dangerous. We are the most dangerous species this galaxy has ever seen. But there is a difference between being dangerous and being a threat. We are only a threat to things that hurt the innocent. We are only dangerous to creatures like the Wraiths, to slavers and conquerors and monsters, to everyone else. he smiled. To everyone else, we are the ones who answer when they call for help. Was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. The crew is asking what happens next. Do we go home? Soon said, first we accept the invitation. We visit their station. We show them that humans are not just warriors. We show them that we can be friends too. He paused. And then we go home. We report to Earth Command, and we prepare for whatever comes next. You think something is coming. I know it is. The galaxy has noticed us now. The Council is afraid. Other species are curious. The Wraiths are running. Everything is changing. He looked at her with steady eyes. We started something here, Captain. 3 days ago, we were a quarantined species locked in our own corner of space. Now we are something else. We are hunters. We are protectors. We are the ones who come when no one else will. Smiled for the first time in days. That sounds like a lot of responsibility, sir. It is, but I think we are ready for it. I think we have been ready for a long time. Looked out at the stars one more time. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting each other. We are very good at war, but we are also very good at something else. We are good at caring. We are good at protecting. We are good at standing up for people who cannot stand up for themselves. He turned away from the window. That is who we are. That is what the galaxy will learn about us. Not that we are dangerous, not that we are violent, but that when someone is in trouble, when someone is afraid, when someone sends a desperate call into the darkness. He smiled, and for the first time it was a warm smile. We are the ones who answer. Behind him, through the windows, the fleet hung in formation around the station. 18 ships that had changed the galaxy. Thousands of humans who had risked everything for strangers. And across the stars, on 100 worlds, beings of every shape and size were hearing the story. They were learning about the small ship that called for help and the strange, young species that came to save it. They were hearing about the monsters that had been killed and the humans who had killed them. Some of them felt fear, but many of them felt something else. They felt hope. They felt wonder. They felt, for the first time in a long time, that maybe the galaxy was not as dark and dangerous as they had believed. Because somewhere out there were humans, and humans answered distress calls. The message was simple, but it changed everything. You are not alone, and when you need help, we will come. That was humanity's promise to the stars. And humanity always kept its promises.